My name is Odalis, and I'm part of the Against No Kill Animal Shelters, Group 4, Animal Science 67, Section 04. A little bit of history about kill shelters. The first animal shelter was created in 1869, though it wasn't until the early 1900s when they began to get overpopulated, having no room to receive more homeless animals. As shelters started to get overpopulated, pets began to get euthanized. Shelters euthanize animals whether they are healthy or not because the shelter has reached their capacity, meaning they can accept no more animals. There are two types of animal shelters, one of them being the municipal shelter and the other one is a private shelter. Mainly all kill shelters are part of the municipal shelter organization. Municipal shelters are those that belong to the government, meaning that shelters have to accept every single animal that is taken in, but are only given a certain amount of budget every month to provide for every single animal they take in. But that being said, having more animals than they could handle leads to the only option of euthanasia. Pet overpopulation occurs when the population in shelters become larger than the amount of resources available for their needs. Overpopulation in shelters. Pet overpopulation is a serious problem, not just a problem in the United States, leaving animal shelters being over capacity and overwhelmed, having no option but to put animals to sleep. There are three main reasons why animals are euthanized. One of them being illness, another one is aggression, and lastly, overpopulation, which is the biggest reason of all. A few reasons leading to a pet overpopulation is people who fail to spray or neuter their pets. When that is not done, the animals end up reproducing and create enormous amount of more animals. Another reason is people still buy animals from breeders or pet stores instead of adopting homeless animals at their local shelter. And lastly, people acquire animals without considering the lifetime commitment that caring for them requires. Eventually, people turn their backs on their loyal companions when they become inconvenient or realize that having a pet in reality is a lot of work, and it's not as easy as it sounds. Shelters that have reached their capacity euthanize animals they no longer have room for. While many of those animals, mainly dogs and cats, are lucky enough to be adopted into loving, responsible, and permanent homes, sadly there are far more animals in need of a caring family than there are current people willing to provide them with a good permanent home. Shelters that have reached their capacity put animals to sleep they no longer have room for. They usually follow a certain deadline time, meaning they give the animals a certain time period to be adopted. While every animal shelter is different, they mostly all follow a 72-hour guideline. So just because a dog or a cat is in good health and has a good temperament, it does not mean they will be kept in a shelter due to no capacity. Shelters in America want to save as many animals as possible, but many people don't contribute into volunteering or adopting animals from their local shelter. As you can see in these images, there are multiple animals in both cages. Cages are intended for one animal per cage. As you can see, that is not the case. The shelter has become too overpopulated to the point where there are, even in this case, 6 kittens in one cage. In this other picture, these animals are in one small cage, which makes them too overwhelmed and doesn't give them the enough space they require. Statistics. According to the pet statistics by the ASPCA, approximately 6.5 million companion animals enter the U.S. animal shelters nationwide every year. Of those 6.5 million, approximately only 3.2 million shelter animals are adopted each year.
So why is this important? one of the first problems with having only no-kill animal shelters that will occur is going to be converting all the existing shelters to no-kill. This is going to be hard because there are thousands across the United States. It will also require the need for more regulators to ensure the shelters are up to code. This is where costs are going to become a big problem. The first stage would be to make sure all the existing shelters will be able to keep the animals. This would cause shelters to begin to have higher expenditures, from food to other items needed to hold the animals. This can be increased in the month-to-month cost because not only are there more animals there, the animals will be staying there longer, so causing for more higher food costs. If a shelter becomes no-kill, then they can not euthanize a healthy or unhealthy animal in order to allow another animal in the shelter. This will cause the shelter to spend more on kennels, and in the long run might have to build more structures. The issue is where will they get the funds from? So this can be shown through an effect on a small town. In order to adopt a no-kill principle, the shelter will need to have an appropriate amount of funds. This can be done in large cities where the budgets are quite immense due to the tens of thousands of people that live there and all the taxes that the city can impose. However, if this shelter is located in a smaller town, then it will be harder to get the funding. That is due to the less population and the ability to not tax as many people in order to get the funds. Small town shelters would have a hard time adjusting to a only no-kill and could potentially become overwhelmed. These shelters require more staff in order to provide an environment that is not detrimental to the animal's health. The increase in staff will mean there are more salaries that need to be paid. Most of the times at smaller shelters, they do not get as many volunteers as some of the more funded shelters. So there was one example that we found, actually in Fresno County. There's an account of a no-kill shelter that was run poorly called Layton Animal Rescue. The main person who ran the rescue was charged with felony counts and actually ended up going to jail. That is because there were multiple violations. At this rescue, there were almost 400 animals that were neglected. ABC 30 Action News reported on this story. This shows how the no-kill shelter was not able to keep up with the high amount of animals, and in fact, a lot of them got diseases, and some actually died there. So this is going to bring up the regulation issue on that must be addressed will be how the no-kill shelters be regulated. And since not all shelters are part of the local government, then there will be problems in trying to keep private shelters to help the animal, such as Layton. The shelters will need new codes, and that itself could have a potential cost to them, as there will be need time to come up with something. Shelters will need to be under more scrutiny since there are no-kill. This would require more personnel to come and check up on them regularly, causing for more costs. But where will the money come from?
Hello, I'm Amelia DiPaola, and I'll be talking more on the ethical aspects and a few other things later on. So, the animals will not be comfortable. The ethical aspects, it's not ethical to keep them in a place where they're struggling. Animals would be neglected because there's not enough staff to attend to them. There's not enough people. There's genuinely not enough people. If shelters are too overcrowded, animals do not have the space they all need due to having to share cages, which is a topic that was brought up a little bit earlier. If an animal is sick, their quality of life will be horrible, and they will end up suffering more than needed. If an animal is sick, it could actually spread the disease and get all the other animals sick. There are some diseases that are very, very easily spread through different animals, like some canine diseases, and then some cat diseases. So you always got to watch for those. And if an animal comes in with that, they have to be quarantined. There might not be sufficient treatment or care for them. There might not be enough staff to try to take care of those animals that are going to have to be in quarantine. Moving on, most likely they will not be treated, and their chance of getting adopted could actually drastically diminish. People don't really want to adopt sick dogs or sick animals. Okay. So I'm going to bring up an example. So this dog, let's say he has a disease that's super, super rare, and there's only one medication that can treat it, and this medication is super, super, super expensive. And he is brought to a shelter because the owners can't afford it, and the owners don't know what to do. And he's dropped off at the shelter. The shelter does not have enough money to pay for the treatment for this dog, and the dog is suffering. Like, he's really, really, really suffering. So it's like literally needed. He's just going to sit there and suffer, basically, in a kennel, quarantined by himself. He's not going to be with other animals. He's going to have a poor quality of life, and he's just going to be really sad. And if you have a no-kill shelter and you can't euthanize him, it'll be basically miserable for him. Okay, so continuing on with ethics, there, like I said before, are not enough funds, and the staff could get overwhelmed, and they won't be able to treat all the animals in a timely manner. So some will have to suffer while they wait to get adopted, or wait for more funding, or wait for someone to come and sponsor them. Vet bills are very, very expensive, so this is a big issue. If shelters did not have the ability to put animals to sleep, they would be really overcrowded, making it very, very easy for diseases to spread. Euthanasia is safe and painless for the animals. It is required by law to be done by a medical professional, which is someone that has to have their license. It can't just be done, like, it's not just this, like, taboo, like, they take him to the back room and all of a sudden they're gone. It's like, it's a very, like, ethical and good way for the animals to pass. So, according to Cornell Veterinary Medicine, the animal will receive a sedative for comfort, and then a lethal injection will be administered. It'll go directly into the vein, and it'll give the animal a short and painless death. Basically, it's an anesthetic, and the animal will pass nicely. Okay, this video is from White Cross Vet's YouTube channel, and it explains it in a little bit more detail. So, 120. Go.
Give the injection. The injection is an anaesthetic which works very quickly, sometimes as quickly as 10-15 seconds, and may have effect within a minute. It is an anaesthetic drug which will stop your pet's heart, and then they will stop breathing.
Okay. So moving on a little bit more, this is a graph that outlines the reasons for euthanasia in pets. So out of 1,587 surveys they had in their shelter alone, 3% were from rabies, which is an untreatable condition. 49% is by owner request, which is either a drop-off or they were like left at a shelter. And then 47% are for medical and aggressive. So that's that includes like the diseases that are untreatable or not able to be treated in the shelters. So there are reasons that they're being euthanized. It's not just because they don't like that dog. It's not just because the dog is like bad or in any way. There are like actual reasons why dogs are euthanized or pets are euthanized. Okay, so we are against no-kill shelters. No-kill shelters are not beneficial for animals. There are problems such as overpopulation in shelters, the cost of treatment, the quality of life, and ethics behind no-kill shelters. They should not be forced to care for animals they cannot care for. Shelters do their best to accommodate and care for every animal, but the amount of limited resources make it impossible. There's only so little they can do, and they can't be blamed for the high amount of animals they receive and have no way to care for them all. So our informed opinion is that those who are against killing animal shelters judge them for being difficult decisions, and they have to make the main ones, not doing anything to help out shelters, whether that means donating money, simply going out to volunteer, It's easier to point out fingers than it's hard to lend a hand. There should be kill shelters in society. No kill shelters are not beneficial. Boom.